And we thank the good Lord for the rain that's coming to the Western Cape, but also my region, Namakwa, in the Northern Cape. So I'm very excited this morning. Honourable members, documents have been issued to you. Excuse me. Just see that you have it. You received a presentation yesterday. Not all the members were in the NCP when we handed it out, so 3 of the members' documents are with me. But the IMTT, Inter-Ministerial Task Team, amended the presentation a bit. I told them last night what is amended, they must inform us, because we focused on the document that was given to us yesterday, and they will give us the latest amended version. So I'm just putting that to you, that we start off on the same page. Honourable members, welcome to this meeting, the second meeting of the ad hoc committee. The first meeting we elected a chairperson, and then the ball started rolling. And welcome to all the members also from other relevant committees, naming Select Committee Finance, Appropriations, Education, Recreation, Security and Justice, and Cooperative Governance and Social Services. So this is a collective. Why? In terms of Rule 254 of the NCP rules, that when the NCP committee or a committee deals with a intervention in terms of Section 100, the other committees have to be consulted. And what we do, we invite all of them to be part of the whole process until the intervention is terminated. Then we are all on the same page, and we stay on the same page and make our inputs. Heartily welcome to the Honourable Minister Dlamini Zuma, leading this important task team, but I call it also assignment. And looking back at our Honourable Minister's portfolios, where she was the Minister, she did excellent work. And we commend her for that. And we wish you well with this responsibility, but also us sitting here that have to do the monitoring in terms of Section 102 of the Constitution. And we will give the Honourable Minister the opportunity to introduce the whole team and delegation from the IMTT. There's all the T's, and then there's a TTT, the triple T. That's the technical task team that is supporting the Inter-Ministerial Task Team. We also recognize Minister Fagetu from Housing, Honourable Gungubele. Now he completed 89 kilometers on Sunday, not by car. He ran from Pietermaritzburg to Durban. And excellent, and we give you a hand for that. Why? Because you end up putting an example to us, you see. We can do 5Ks. Excellent, Minister, excellent. You did very well. Also the DG of DME, Mfofu, Decock, where's the DG? Down there. Yo, you sit so far. Okay. Mr. Dan Mashatisho. That's it. Welcome. Welcome to you. I received apologies, honourable members, from Minister Zweli Nkize. He's at Scopa now. They called DCOC engaging on municipalities, which is a serious issue. We met with him yesterday in appropriations on the disaster management grant. Also, Deputy Minister Andries Nel. He was yesterday at the SALGA conference. He's in Gauteng, also with municipalities. And the Honourable Minister Bladen Zamandi that's also tied up in the BRICS Inter-Ministerial meeting in Pretoria. The BRICS people are also here. Secretary, thank you. That is for you. I received an apology from Honorable Motara, who's the member of the Select Committee for Finance and Appropriations. She's not well. Honorable members, yesterday, 27 minutes past 4, we received this memorandum. Excuse me. This memorandum was sent to the chairperson of the National Council of Provinces, explaining the cabinet decision of 23rd of May 2018, and you saw it on the 24th in a press statement by cabinet that was televised. This is the memo explaining that decision, looking at the Section 100 intervention, making it a 101A and a 101B, and this is actually a very good summary of the presentation we're going to receive. There's only one thing, and I phoned the DG this morning. In the memo, page 3.5.
Chairperson, I'm sorry to interject. We don't have any literature or handout.
Can someone from the staff just assist there, please? Honorable Zwane, please assist there. 3.5, subsequently, Cabinet took a decision on the 9th of May 2019. Now, I don't know if we will be here on 2019. That the branches of our political parties will decide that one. So just corrected, it must be 2018. That this be corrected and correctly tabled again. I informed the Secretary of the NCOP, and welcome to Advocate Pandela. So here's the document, the memo, explaining the intervention. Honourable members, it's a Section 101A and a 101B intervention. Advocate Jenkins is here. This is a very long room. You must look carefully who's sitting around the table, because we invited him. Section 101A indicates that the provincial departments and the executive is issued with a directive from the national executive. And according to that directive, certain things must be done, action taken, and so forth. Section 101B indicates and say that the national executive take over the powers of the executive for those departments in that province, and administrators will be appointed, led by a leading administrator or coordinating administrator. I just want to give you that clarity. It will come out in the presentation. We recognize the presence of Honourable Motsoaledi. Welcome, welcome. I know you are, you are running around in South Africa, but trying to solve the health issues. Why are we here? We are here to ensure good governance, sound financial management, clean administration, efficient service delivery, which is critical to achieve and sustain, a better life for all. Being accountable for actions taken in money spent. Why? Because Section 38 to 41 of the PFMA tells us what is expected of the accounting officer. It's law. Here it is. Section 81 to 86, financial misconduct. And what then? It's here. The Constitution, the PFMA, and the MFMA. It's the law. And if you break it, you're in trouble. If I drive my car over a red robot, I'm in trouble. I broke the law. The same principle applies here. With that introduction, honourable members, also you received a copy of our program until November. Just look at that. It's subjected to change. Why? Because the program committee is meeting next Wednesday. So file that in your file, and my advice to you is to get you a clip file and put all your documents of this ad hoc committee in that. You also received a copy, Honourable Minister Dlamini Zuma, the members received a copy of the AG's report. That's your homework. That's one. There it is, capturing the findings of the provinces. Welcome, Advocate Jenkins. There you are. I need some binoculars to look down the, who else is here? Makue. Eddie. Where's Eddie? Oh, there you sit. No, you can't sit there. Come to the table. Welcome to Honourable Eddie Makue from Gauteng. Honourable members, I'm going to hand over now to the leader of the IMTT to take us through the presentation, make her introductory words, or what she wants to tell us, and then direct to whom will take us through the presentation. Honourable Minister, welcome again. Over to you. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Sorry, Minister. What? I can't hear the honourable member. Can I get? Yes, sorry. You must put it up high that I can see it.
Sorry, I don't know whether it was going to be possible. Why we opted for this venue, knowing the number of people that are coming, I can see that it's not conducive for the meeting of this nature. So I was pleading if it's possible, because you know that the other venues that are convenient, like your old assembly and the others, it was going to be possible for the meeting of this nature. But looking at other members, how they are sitting, and even the sitting arrangement, I don't think it's the right way of us dealing with a very important meeting of this level, sitting like this. But it won't take us maybe 10 minutes, if that venue is available, to go to a convenient venue.
Well, I can't answer that question because the staff arranged the room, the committee room. E249 is taken by Scopa. That's the ideal room to go to. Can someone reply to that, because I can't?
It was previously arranged. The venues had been previously arranged and the others were booked.
Can you please talk through the order, members, order. One person speaking in the committee. That's the rule. No interjections. I note the honourable member. We will get the explanation.
My name is Honorable Mokwele.
No, wait. She's first going to explain.
No,
Listen
I'm
to
coming with a
honourable member, listen to my ruling. Don't
but don't bully us. Don't bully us. No.
Can you please explain? Can you please explain the reason for why we are here?
Given the shortages of venues within Parliament, it was a battle to actually find a venue, and we only found one earlier this week, which is V227. The other bigger venues have already been booked by other committees.
So in future, we will go to a bigger venue. If you look at your program, 27 June, OAC, Old Assembly Chambers. Consult your program. I noted the honourable member, you may address us.
No, Chair, it's fine because we have already got the response. But I was thinking that maybe if we can check the old assembly, we know that all the buildings are taken, but some meetings might take 2 hours and then they are finished by 10 and then we maybe, or 11. If maybe the staff can check old assembly or the very same 249 and then during break time, we then move there because this venue, to tell the honest truth, is not convenient. Thanks.
There's no break time. We work until we finish because there's a plenary at 2 o'clock. There's no time for breaks. If you want coffee, you step over, you take your coffee, you come back to your table. Pardon?
I'm saying, Chair, there is nothing wrong in agreeing to the proposal. In the meantime, we proceed with the meeting. Yes, and
Can we
if
be
later, I mean,
Let's
those
be
other venues are
progressive.
available, we can move. Thank you.
Let's be progressive. Honorable Motla Shopping, take your seat, please. Okay. You're welcome. There's still a lot of space down there. Everyone can sit at the table. Order. Order. Let's focus now on the presentation to be given by the Honorable Dlamini Zuma, Minister.
Thank you very much, Chairperson. First, let me say we are privileged to come and address this ad hoc committee on this rainy day. And of course, Cape Town needs rain. So it's good that we are addressing you on a rainy day. I'm just going to give a very short history of how we came to where we are now. I think all the honorable members had seen what had happened in Northwest. And then the cabinet had a discussion on the matter and decided that we must intervene in the Northwest. And then the president appointed an Inter-Ministerial Committee. And the mandate of the Inter-Ministerial Committee was to conduct an assessment on the state of governance in the Northwest and also to appraise Cabinet of the potential risks facing the province and also to be seized with the matter until all the critical issues are resolved. At that time, we know that health was in trouble, so a decision at that meeting was also taken that the Department of Health in the Northwest should be put under Section 101B. After that decision, we then established a technical task team to work with us, and we sent the technical task team to the Northwest. They went there for a few days, came back, briefed us, and then we also went to the Northwest for about 3 days we were there. We discussed with the executive, with the premier. The technical team had discussed with the officials in the various departments. Following that, we realized that there were problems in the province, but the worst problems were in the municipalities. We then came back and briefed Cabinet that we think that we should put the province under Section 101, but that there needs to be further assessment by each department on the extent of the problems. So the departments went back to the Northwest, assessing the extent of the problems, because depending on the extent of the problems, you can either be 1A or 1B. So after that assessment, the different departments then came and said, these are the problems they've found, and accordingly, they think they should go under A, and some said under B. Then we went back to Cabinet, informed Cabinet, and Cabinet accepted that. We also visited a number of municipalities to just get a sense of what was going on there. And indeed, we realized that of those we visited, there were serious problems. And then the departments accordingly had to put a plan of what are the issues that they think National should intervene in their departments. Because they found that not everything in every department was wrong. So they identified those areas that need intervention. And that's what we are also going to present to you, which areas departments thought there should be interventions in. And now we went back to the Northwest to inform the executive, to inform the mayors and the MMs, to inform the auditors and the provincial legislature, so that we all understand, they understand where we are. And now the process is to appoint the administrators and coordinators. Of course, health has been there working for some time because it was the first one to be put under Section 1A, Section 101B, and they have already got their administrator on the ground. So we are going to ask the DG of DPME to do the presentation, particularly on the areas where departments felt intervention was needed. Now, I must apologize for the other members of the Inter-Ministerial Task Team, because today is a Cabinet Committee day, so we couldn't collapse the Cabinet Committee by bringing everybody. So we thought we should bring a delegation rather than the entire team. And the delegation that is here is the Minister of Human Settlement. You know her very well, doesn't need any introduction. Minister Mfeketo. And then the Deputy Minister of Finance. You've already heard that he was running a marathon, but he's fit, he's here, he's not lying in bed. And it was his, 8th medal? It was his 8th medal, so it wasn't his first. And then we have the Minister of Sports, Minister Klasa. We have the Minister of Health. And then we have the DG leading other members of the technical task team. So I thought I should just make that apology that not the entire Inter-Ministerial Task Team is here. But I think we'll be able to deal with most issues that may arise because we've been working as a team. Maybe that should suffice as an introduction. I will then hand over to the DG of DPME, Ms. Mpumi Mpofu, to give the presentation. Thank you.
Mr. Kasa, welcome. Welcome at this very important meeting. I was informed there is amended briefing document. Now, has that been issued to the members? Can you just give me a new one? Then you may proceed. Honourable members, we're getting a presentation and analysis of this team's hard work in Northwest coming to inform us. The second step, Honourable Minister, will be when we meet the province. I engaged already yesterday with the acting premier to make the space for them to appear before us. So that will be step 2. And then step 3 will be the drafting of the report. Step 4 will be a visit in Northwest if you consult your program that was handed to you. And that will take us up to November. DG?
Maybe just
Sorry. Honorable Makue, with your hand up. No, Chair. Thank you, Honorable.
yeah, just before the DG, just to also say we also met a variety of stakeholders. Yeah, so we didn't only meet government, legislatures, councillors, but we also met stakeholders in a number of areas. So thanks.
DG, where are you? Oh, yeah, there you.
Thank you very much for the opportunity, Honorable Chairperson of the Ad Hoc Committee. A very good morning to the Chief Whip, the honorable members of the committee, honorable ministers that are here. I serve as the chairperson of the technical task team, and I am here accompanied by the Director General of COPTA, Mr. Dan Mashitisho, and the Director General of Human Settlement, who is here with us as well, and other officials in the various departments that are in the leadership of this task team. The Minister, in her overview, has already given a very good sense of the process, and in fact, that is quite helpful because in a sense we will then give you the report and an update of the work done by the technical task team without necessarily reiterating the processes as the Minister has clearly outlined. What this presentation will cover is the implementation plans for Section 101A and Section 101B for the specific provincial departments. And that's really to focus the minds of the committee on what is intended as the nature of the intervention. But we'll reflect also on how we got there, reflecting on the stakeholder consultations. The Minister has already referred to site visits to schools and human settlement projects and a couple of municipalities, the specific implementation of the sections in various departments. We'll cover also a session that deals with the state of governance overall in the Northwest Province in relation to our findings, the challenges that were found, the risks and remedial action. We'll conclude our presentation by giving a sense of what the next steps are and basically what the work of the Inter-Ministerial Task Team over the next few months will entail and how that process will unfold. And again, the Minister quite clearly in her introduction has confirmed the mandate of the Inter-Ministerial Task Team, which is there on the first or the page 2 of our slides, and I will not reiterate that. That basically comes out of a cabinet decision at the establishment of the IMTT. The cabinet decisions of 23rd of May, and I think the Minister clarified as well, the first decision on the 9th of May was to say Section 101, but without determining A or B, followed by an assessment over a fortnight. After the assessment at the meeting of the 23rd of May, the following provincial departments had the invocation of Section 101A and 101B as listed there. Section 101A, Department of Finance, Economic and Enterprise Development, Department of Local Government and Human Settlement, Rural Environment and Agricultural Development, Social Development and Tourism. Those were Section 101As. The Section 101Bs, the Office of the Premier, Department of Community Safety and Transportation, and they will indicate it is really the transportation management part, not the community safety part of that department, but we'll illustrate later as we proceed in our presentation. Department of Basic Education, Sports and Development, Health, Public Works and Roads. What then are the implementation plans for the Section 101A departments? And these are the ones, as the chairperson has indicated, which are aimed to be issued with directives, and those directives are quite clearly going to cover the following areas. In the Department of Finance, Economic enterprise development feed. And just for ease of reference, honorable members, can I indicate the first time we referred to a particular title, we abbreviate it, and the balance of the presentation, we don't refer to the long version. So if you can just follow that throughout, we refer to it in full, and then abbreviation throughout the presentation. The provincial feed, what they call provincial feed, which is that central department of provincial treasury, for lack of a better description, it has other functions within it. They identified quite clearly the issue of capacitation of supply chain management in provincial departments and entities, and that relates to basically the relationship between this provincial treasury and other departments. I think our findings were in fact that the provincial department itself had a clean audit, but didn't do quite well in performing oversight and helping others. So there were issues around how they extend the capacitation of supply chain to other departments and the entities so that they can actually perform at the same standard as the central department. The strengthening of the SCM processes and systems, redress on irregular expenditure in provincial departments, entities, and non-compliance backlog, infrastructure procurement, relocation of the Northwest Development Corporation. There an issue there about that development cooperation, which is reporting elsewhere, needs to actually report centrally so that you get better accountability. Rationalization of the Northwest public entities, and were informed by the provincial government they had started some process of rationalizing the Northwest public entities, and that process would then need to be enforced and concluded and finalized. Improving revenue collection and health resource allocation, strengthening local government municipal finance management act unit within the provincial treasury feed in order to ensure that at municipal level they receive the relevant support in MFMA support. Review of the MFMA structure to accommodate 4 directors placed in district offices and strengthen head office coordination with the director. And again, clearly that illustrates there's a capacity problem about how provincial treasury works with others. They are confirming they can establish a unit specifically to deal with that. Clarifying roles and responsibilities with a memorandum of understanding, and this applies to the entire intervention. The entire intervention will be guided by an integrated MOU that covers all the departments and the national departments and ensures that we're quite clear about how this particular initiative will be driven. Improvement of governance structures, planning and budgeting of municipalities, revenue management processes, and compliance with SCM. Primary objective is to actually just improve the audit outcomes of municipalities. When we deal with the section of municipalities, we'll be able to tell you what the problem is and what our findings were with respect to the local government sphere. With respect to the Department of Human Settlement, the second one that is going to issue directives, they identified human settlements as a high risk in the province, but they actually approved a human settlement development business plan. The provincial department did not meet its target, and that national recommended 7 intervention areas. And again, in this particular instance, our finding is that the national department and the provincial department, via MINMAC processes, had already started talking to each other about how to sort out some of the problems. So the directive helps them to basically formalize those processes that had already started and were quite clearly indicative of challenges, but challenges that could be resolved, and the mechanism of directives would have been seen as the best. And therefore, in the directives, we've listed there the number of areas, and I won't go through all of them, which basically would have allowed the national department to get into an agreement via the directive with the provincial department and ensure that the following 7 areas are actually covered and actually happen. The delivery business plans, the multi-year human settlement development plan, the issue around appointing suitably qualified and capable contractors who are CIDB and NHBRC registered, performance of contractors, project management and effective program management, beneficiary management and community outreach, repositioning of the department to become fit for purpose. The second area that really deals with that is the Provincial Department of Local Government, and this particular directive would be issued by the National Department of Cooperative Governance. And in that instance, they've identified a number of things. And the situation here relates, as the Minister quite clearly said, there are problems at the province, there are even worse problems at the municipality. And the findings quite clearly indicate at 20 out of the 22 municipalities obtained disclaimers or qualified audits in 2016, 2017. The second is that out of those 22, 12 are actually dysfunctional and require urgent intervention. And in that instance, I think there's been clear identification. If you even look at the information that comes from the Auditor General on this, you will see correlation between those municipalities that call them in distress. And this 12 fits very neatly into that category of municipalities. They either have had Section 139 applied to them before, they have disclaimers, it's just a really serious situation. But COCTA is quite clear that they would be able to intervene in these 12 and correct the situation as via the directives as has been indicated, to restore governance and compliance, to ensure approval of a new organizational structure from the provincial department, to deal with audit improvement plans, appointment of senior managers in municipalities, bloated organizational structures, improve spending on government grants, and develop revenue enhancement plans. The Department of Environment, which is the Provincial Department of Rural Environment and Agricultural Development, known as READ. The scoping was done by the National Department of Agriculture, Forestry and Fisheries and Forestry at National. And the summary of the interventions there are quite clear. Assessment of programs with respect to implementation of projects, particularly with the Comprehensive Agriculture Support Program, CASP, and Ilima Litsema program that they have in the province. Engagement on reasons why their business plan on the year was not approved, and then interventions on that business plan. Audit of CASP conditional projects, development of modus operandi to define a working relationship and responsibility between the task team and the READ team, litigation process to demand the closeout report from Agri-Delight, and the report is still required at this stage. The big finding in this department is the problem of Agri-Delight. And Agri-Delight is known as a PMU, a project management unit, that was appointed to come and do a lot of work in the Department of Agriculture. Our findings were that a number of irregular expenditure and issues that pertained in the department actually originated from what is now known as the controversial contract of Agri-Delight. Transfer mechanization assets to beneficiaries, forensic audit on Agri-Delight, and that really is the big problem in agriculture, the Agri-Delight issue. And then a strategy to avoid the appointment of PMUs. General finding is there are a lot of PMUs, project management units, that are appointed in various departments. Some are sitting in the Premier's office. And the challenge with them is the intention normally is to appoint PMUs so they help departments. Our findings generally are that it seems they are the cause of the problems rather than the solutions in this instance. Irregular expenditure, illegal contracts, and a number of things that they are found to be responsible for. Human capacity constraints, building engineering capacity, and then list and profile FETS Atlala projects and Ilima Litsema projects in that department. Social development, just members would recall social development had a particular challenge. They participated in the strike as well, but it seemed that the strike was directly related to the building and occupational health issues, the building they occupied as the Department of Social Development. And so you'll see the matters here relate somewhat to what those original causes are. But in addition to that, there were issues related to transfer payments of subsidies to NPOs, management of conditional grants, essential services, financial performance, security services, finalization of the annual report, recovery and catch-up plan following the strike, and resolution of the matter of the office for the provincial DSD currently occupying this privately owned building. You will find this is really the central issue at DSD. The building, its occupation, it's falling apart, the staff are unhappy, they go on strike, and realistically their contestation is simply because they can't occupy a building of this particular standard. Department of Tourism would issue directives. In fact, our findings are that there's very limited amount of work here. Separation of powers between administration and political leadership, assessment of oversight, financial management and contract management, management of litigation and governance arrangements. The real work lies in the section 101Bs. And in this particular instance, the Office of the Premier is the first. And the assessment was done both by DPSA National and DPME National, because the Office of the Premier serves the kind of similar function of central management of administration, but also acts as the responsibility area for planning, monitoring, and evaluation for the entire province. The finding there indicates issues that actually the OTP failed to provide administrative leadership to the entire province and was not able to prevent conditions that resulted in the breakdown of essential services, which actually necessitated the national government intervention. So why did we end up in this place? Possibly because this office did not do as much as it could to prevent the situation, and their responsibilities of oversight in this instance are come to question. So we've developed a plan for the section 101B for what is called OTP, which is the Office of the Premier. And the list there includes the responsibilities that are going to be assumed by the national departments, including enhancing governance and ensuring compliance with legal prescripts, reviewing of delegations, provincial departments to develop service delivery improvement plans, audit of the ICT systems within the province. And again, here seems to be a problem of a PMU that exists and transversal ICT functions taken up to the Office of the Premier, a problem with the contract, matters relating specifically to the centralization of those functions. Planning and risk management, assessing all the PMU contracts from the center, because it would appear that the existence of a PMU was authorized from this office, and a particular issue about whether or not PMUs are necessary, the assessment, whether in fact they should be established, and the mechanisms for management of PMUs once they exist and their activities needs to be centrally coordinated. And then provide feedback to the OTP and management of all the provincial departments in order to prevent speculation and misinformation. This is informed by our general finding that the OTP also, and they really admitted this themselves, did not quite manage to communicate effectively even with the unions. And in fact, the processes that led to the strike was because of inadequate communication between this office and the unions in order to deal with the problems as they arose, so that honestly there would be some engagement. It was the absence of engagement that probably led to the situation as we saw it. The Department of Basic Education, who need to restore effective governance and improve service delivery in this area. Their main concerns and need, as they say in the interventions, to deal with matters of emphasis in the AG report, strengthening financial management, human resource management development, curriculum management and delivery, conditional grants management, early childhood development, district coordination, infrastructure development, identification of learners who qualify for learner transport and not being transported currently, and the National School Nutrition Program. In the Department of Health, the Minister has already indicated the National Department of Health has been literally on the ground since the strike. Major interventions have been made. Subsequently, an administrator was appointed, and a little bit more work has been done in the health sector because of the crisis of the strike than has been in other areas, simply because of the nature of the crisis that faced health. in essence, what the findings were is to indicate really serious challenges around governance structures, absence of effective supply chain management, and absence of financial controls in that department. But because this area has received more focus, the investigations have started, they've been handed over to the investigating authorities, so a lot more work has actually happened to correct the situation, which is conducted by National Treasury, but also National Department of Health has been seized with these matters. The National Department of Health would assume responsibility for strengthening supply chain management, focusing on potential risks related to corruption, initiation of disciplinary and criminal proceedings. In fact, I must say in these instances, the investigations are far advanced. Diagnostic assessment of investigating root causes of internal governance and leadership and organizational matters. Sustainability of projects and exit strategy, including monitoring and evaluation, ensuring implementation of procurement reform project to be rolled out by the National Department of Health in conjunction with National Treasury. Further work by the National Department of Health and Provincial Health is to review the organizational structure of the department, restoring services and bringing about order, recovery plans to strengthen good administrative practices, review historical audit committee reports, and reporting on progress of the IMTT and Health Portfolio Committee and Provincial Legislature and NCOP. National Public Works, working together with the Provincial Department of Public Works and Roads. And in that particular instance, that's a Section 1B. There are real challenges around what seem to be centralization of functions of the Provincial Department of Public Works, where certain functions have been eroded away from the department to OTP. And in this particular instance, the department would like clarification and redelegation of some of the functions in those areas in order to be able to execute its mandate. Client management unit, joint planning and execution and reporting. Centralization of functions which include technical professional skills and requisite capacity for project implementation, and that the provincial departments need to really focus on planning, monitoring, and implementation model for infrastructure projects, proper controls, accountability, and maintenance as per their mandate. They also need a clearly structured facilities management and maintenance plan, and to appoint competent service providers in terms of the contract. One of the challenges that seems to cut across in this public works environment is the issue about availability of technical skills and professionals in the Northwest. And this department has to focus on recruiting and ensuring they can sustain highly qualified built environment professionals in order to actually do the work of the department properly over the period. We indicate there a number of list of other issues that the Department of Public Works, and I won't go into the detail except to highlight, because the big thing is about technical skills, technical professionals, etc., but to highlight that they will have to review their skills development plan because there's a mismatch between what they have and the reality of what they're able to retain as resources in the province. To also highlight the problem of irregular expenditure amounting to 3.4 billion in 2017-2018, which is attributable to SCM non-compliance and deviations from procurement, and the review of the SCM organizational structure to deal with adequate segregation of duties and redesign. I will not go into the rest, but there's very clear structured program that would help the provincial department to overcome a lot of the challenges that they face. In the Department of Community Safety and Transportation, and again we indicated there, the assessment shows that there's really just normal capacity shortage in the community safety side, like most provincial departments, but they can resolve that issue. The real problem lies in the transport management side of the department. And in that instance, the National Department of Transport will quite clearly assume responsibilities for ensuring forensic investigations are conducted in this function for areas they've already identified might have problematic contracts. And one of the areas is actually scholar learner transportation that's managed by the department. Internal control systems, gaps in the SCM, review of strategic planning, update and risk assessment registers, review of provincially owned entities and the entities that actually perform the transport function, and big questions being asked about the relationship between the department and those provincially owned entities in the transport sector. Management of conditional grants and the restructuring and review of bidding processes and bidding committees. And that relates to that first item around forensic investigations, because there seems to be some problems of corruption, etc., in some of the contracts that they've identified. The minister also confirmed that IMTT engaged with several stakeholders, and quite clearly on many occasions, particularly in the meetings in Mafikeng and then in every municipality that the IMTT visited, there would always be an engagement for the second part of the meeting, that means the afternoon, with the stakeholders in the area outside of the government officials. And we list there and summarize generally all the stakeholders that were met in the various areas of Mafikeng, Ditsobotla, and Madibeng, where the actual engagements did happen. The stakeholders, just as a collective, raised, and the issues were similar throughout, but we grouped them in this order, and we summarize them as follows. Insufficient and ineffective governance, widespread corruption, poor lack of service delivery, appointment of incompetent officials, lack of consequent management and investigations into reported fraudulent practices, dysfunctional municipalities, unemployment, and lack of support for youth initiatives. And that quite clearly coincides with our findings. In fact, what the stakeholders are saying and what we have found is very similar. And you know, the reality of the Northwest can be summarized as that. In other instances, they then made very specific proposals, and you would remember that at that particular time, they were demanding the removal of the premier, the placing of the province under administration to stabilize governance, the expansion of Section 101B to other departments, implementation of Section 139, and they specifically listed in which municipalities: Madibeng, Rustenburg, Potchefstroom, Mafikeng, Ngaka Mudirimulema district municipality. Realignment of provincial government, comprehensive investigations into corruption, appointment of competent and ethical accounting officers, investigation and delivery, outreach programs, and implementation plans with the local stakeholders in order to address specific service delivery challenges. In addressing the stakeholder issues, as we indicated, the intervention moved into the operational phase and appointment of administrators for Section 101B, issuance of national directives for those in 101A, and most specifically, the stakeholder concerns that should be addressed by national and provincial departments directly and reported to the IMTT. So the IMTT, in its engagement, listened very carefully to the stakeholders, including meetings with the leadership of the province and certain municipalities, and made a commitment to improve the situation in the Northwest. The feedback indicated to the IMTT, and the community expected feedback from the IMTT on a regular basis, as they had been formally engaged in the beginning, and that a structured communications plan would be developed. COCTA would develop a rescue plan for addressing problems in the identified visited municipalities and over and above the Section 100A intervention into their provincial counterpart. National Department of Traditional Affairs would also address itself in one of the stakeholder meetings in Madibeng. There just seemed to be a particularly looming risk and conflict around the relationship between traditional leadership and municipalities, which was long outstanding, had not been addressed, but really just in one municipality, you would have felt that the issue of the traditional leaders in that area was quite significant. In this particular part of the presentation, we just recap our findings with respect to the site visits of the human settlement projects and the dysfunctional schools, and the two departments of Basic Education and the Department of Human Settlements were responsible for undertaking those visits, drill in, assess what was going on, and actually come and report back. With respect to DBE, on the first bullet, we give you the sense of who participated in that intervention. The finding was that the schools had not been operational since 21st of February in 2018. 72 schools had been affected and 3 in Ratlo, which most be affected. And since February, there had been no learning and teaching which had taken place in that particular area. The closure of the schools had since resulted in violent protests. We also indicate the mayor that the memorandum that was presented to the mayor and issues related to unfinished housing and projects and amenities in that particular area. Previous engagements had also indicated that in this area, in fact, the closure of the schools had very little to do with learning and education, and that it would seem very specifically that the community had resolved to not have schools operational in order to resolve service delivery matters. And those service delivery matters related to unfinished housing, road construction, and disputes with the election committee. So the attempt here was to deal with a very speedy recovery and making sure that the schools would be reopened, and then attending to the matters that really were about roads and housing and not education. And I think we're making good progress with respect to that particular area. In human settlements, in terms of a business plan on 2017-2018, Northwest delivered 57% of the planned 17,864 housing opportunities. 300 million of the funding was stopped by the province and relocated. Planned project delivery targets of those 3 financial years were not met, in contrast to the full expenditure of the allocated funding, grant funding. Increased underperformance in delivery of sites and service, sites and housing units in the province, despite increase in financial allocations. And in that particular bar chart, we illustrate really what has been happening to housing delivery over the periods. You could see the gap between what is targeted, which is in the light blue, and what is delivered. So in the first years of 11-12, they exceed the targets, but in the next years that they miss the targets, and it's been an up and down situation with 2 years of doing well and 2 years of regressing and 2 years of doing well, etc., which is really just is illustrated by this. But the most concerning are the issues around 16-17 and 17-18, where clearly the target is much higher and what they're able to deliver is, much less than what has been targeted. What is indicated here is there are also challenges that were brought to the attention of the IMTT in projects in Naledi local municipality. Our findings were this relates to some 5,341 housing, but our findings are listed there, which indicate exactly what happened to these projects. By and large, there's an indication that they were able to, the structures were not properly built, they had to be demolished, they had to be rebuilt, and after a particular period, the situation was corrected in those areas. But overall, there's just a general problem around which needs to be looked at further, various areas where housing projects are not complete or had to take 2 phases to be completed, first phase of incompletion and then a second phase. And I would summarize that in that way. In relation to the implementation of Section 101A, which is the 5 departments that we've listed, we indicate and confirm that they would issue directives and would be preparing for the monitoring and progress reports, which would be submitted to a chief coordinator. Earlier on, we indicated that there would be an MOU, and then because we have 10 departments under this particular intervention, there's one person that would be appointed to coordinate all of them. So these 1As would then report to that central coordinator on a regular basis. And that central coordination mechanism would then provide the overall function. The heads of departments will account to the TTT. The administrators and HODs would be accountable to the chief coordinator. and would monitor efficiency, effectiveness, and accountability to the stakeholders through the coordinating mechanism. And I must indicate the engagement with stakeholders are structured, they are organized stakeholders, and they are engaged formally, as the IMTT has quite clearly done from the beginning, and that those structures actually exist. This coordinator would continue to inform those structures as the process proceeds in that way. With respect to Section 101B, we outline there the process for appointment of administrators, and they would assume the responsibilities of accounting officers in those particular departments, and they would work in concurrence with the National Treasury. They would implement interventions identified. We've started with the intervention plans in each particular Section 101B area. They would provide progress reports to the chief coordinator as well. But more importantly, they would also deal with identified risk of service delivery. The next steps in terms of the process include, as the Minister has already outlined and confirmed, there was quite an extensive engagement last week with the provincial structures. Northwest Exco, the Premier's Coordinating Council, and mayors who are part of that structure, the legislature, and external auditors. And so there's at least clarity in the Northwest province about what is going to happen, what needs to happen, the processes, and everything. The next important step...
Sorry. This page is very important.
Yes.
Who's appointed, to do what, to do when. This is very important.
Yes. Okay. There is work happening behind the scenes which is going to facilitate the finalization, the development, and the signing of the MOU between the Office of the Premier and National Government, and that's a single MOU that is integrated and coordinates all of this that we have said. The appointment of the coordinator for the national intervention, the issuing of directives to provincial departments, on the Section 101A, the appointment of 5 administrators for the provincial departments under Section 101B, and then the discussion on the monitoring mechanisms and frequency of reporting. The committee had also asked us to do an assessment of state of governance. And really, just in summary, we've indicated generally what the problems are, but just to answer the questions of governance, we've classified it into different types of governance. We've start here with the financial governance and say realistically, problems are ineffective financial controls, governance, and accountability despite the existence of governance structures. So our initial assessment was to say, are there governance structures? And we find that they are there. Are they taking the right decisions? Not really. Are they issuing directives to departments to act? We cannot trace the evidence that they've acted as they should have against both the municipalities and the provincial departments that have been found wanting with respect to many of these areas. Supply chain management, control management systems, which have been weakened and in some cases have collapsed, rampant flaunting of SEM procedures and prescripts, and you go all the way down to local government level where the evidence shows you things that are really, that really need urgent attention. Considerable increase in unauthorized, irregular expenditure, and this for us is the most important flag that emerges. And that's accumulated irregular expenditure, which grew consistently from an average of 2.1 billion. So that's an average of 2.1 billion growth from 8.6 billion in 2013 to 2014 to 15.39 billion in 2016 to 2017. So that's really the crux of them. And that's a summary of really the crux of the problem. In the main departments contributing towards this irregular expenditure, health contributed 6.4 billion, public works, the 3.4 billion we related to earlier, community safety and transport, and please, the community safety people don't like this because they are the police and they think they are very responsible. It's transport management, but they are just called under one name. 3.7 billion. Education and sports, 946 million. The Office of the Premier, 535 million. READ, 413, and we can almost indicate largely the agri-delight problem relates to that to that particular area. In the area of financial governance, we also continue unauthorized expenditure, which is of quite a serious nature. In the health sector, 362 million, but health will indicate and they mitigate and they say really in just health generally, there is a challenge around inadequate resources. So that unauthorized expenditure emerges from just general underfunding in the health sector. Transportation, 13 million. Sport and development, 8.7 million. The challenges of budget implementation and financial management are exacerbated by 42% vacancy rate in the provincial supply chain management units and lack of appropriate supply chain management skills. Worsening audit outcomes across the departments and no documented improvement plan which exists that shows a turnaround to the particular challenges. Department of Health's audit outcomes, clear example of regression. Between 2012 and 2014, received an unqualified opinion, and this regressed to a qualified opinion in 16, 17. Corporate governance challenges, the existence of structures, but no real sense that they do what they are meant to. The oversight functions, they exist. Even the audit committees exist per department, etc. But we're just not getting a sense as to how effective they've been. There's no indication that they've acted. There's no sense that there's been consequent management in those particular areas. And I think the most telling, the clearest evidence is to be found, of course, in the Auditor General's report and in the Provincial Service Commission report. Overall, when you engage particularly with officials and really try and find some of the challenges with corporate governance, is there just seems to be a poor management of the political administrative interface, poor relationship between labor and the employer, and as I indicated earlier, this is probably what led to the strike, and just the lack of engagement with the labor movement and the external stakeholders and communities to a large extent. Challenges with institutional governance, centralization of SCM procedures, which has compromised management. The model of project management units, it's contributed to the breakdown of what we call the management prerogative in relation to the SCM functions, because as soon as a project management unit comes in, the accounting officer doesn't know whether they are in charge or not, or whether it's the PMU and what they do in relation to it. And it's just created a layer which has created some accountability problems. But as we said earlier, the big challenge is that the PMUs themselves seem to be contributors to the irregular expenditure, the illegal contracts, the payments that are not done, the payments that are done for services not provided, and they are actually meant to help, but they've not really helped the province. And this issue about labor disputes and strikes, particularly in the Department of Health and Social Development, has been quite important. The police have been in the area, they've arrested the situation of unrest and the service delivery protests. A separate report is provided by the security JCPS structures, which actually relates to the detail of the investigations, and we really don't have an update as to where they are now, but at some point they would be able to report how far they've gone with their investigations. I think our attitude generally has been, if there's a matter that requires the law, we refer it to the law enforcement agencies and leave it out. And therefore, we deal with the administration in this instance, and the law enforcement agencies proceed to do their work unabated and undisrupted by our activities. The levels of corporate governance lapses include the hospital revitalization programs and equipment acquisition in the Department of Health, the illegal contracts entered into by the PMUs, the awarding of scholar and commuter transportation by Transport Management Department, as well as the Office of the Premier, the SCM challenges, and particularly Agri-Delight in the Northwest Department of Agriculture. And I think there we just indicate what seem to have been challenges with the Agri-Delight contract. But I'm certain that matter is well in the hands of the investigating law enforcement agencies, and they are dealing with it. We will await their outcome. So we're not too worried about that issue because it's already in the hands of the law and it's being dealt with. Honorable Chairperson, you had also asked that we cover challenges, risks, and remedial action. And just to avoid repeating myself, because I think there's a challenge at this point now that we're quite repetitive in what we're reporting. We have restructured the information to meet your requirements. And in this section, we highlight the challenges, which I've already referred to. The 12 dysfunctional municipalities were in crisis. The 14 out of the 22 have unfunded budgets, problems around weak governance, and that's the local government areas. We indicate the risks and we indicate the remedial action that we intend taking with respect to all of these areas. One of the challenges I would highlight here that probably isn't covered elsewhere is the issue about municipal water services authorities, which are deemed to be operationally weak in this particular province and require intervention either at the role of the district as water services function and the services authorities themselves. There's just an area here that needs particular attention to be resolved in order for us to move forward. But that's a matter we have in the remedial action, have indicated exactly what needs to be done to be able to deal with it. The second area, again, I just not to overemphasize, is the real concern on risks is the rising levels of unauthorized, irregular, fruitless, and wasteful expenditure. And all those, the biggest one is the irregular expenditure that's of the highest magnitude, and that's a real concern to all of us. On the next section, we deal with financial issues as well and institutional issues, and we indicate what the challenges were that we found, what the risks were in relation to that, and then the remedial action to be taken. What is important is that that remedial action we're referring to is already encapsulated in our implementation plans for each and every department. Similar would relate to service delivery. These are the various challenges we found. The severe disruption in the health services. There was significant disruption in social development as well. But in effect, the issues of bigger concern are around the financial management on scholar transport and commuter transportation, deterioration condition of public buildings, title deeds backlog, and implementation of school infrastructure build program. The National Department of Education is really concerned about this matter of the school infrastructure build program, and they're just maybe slowing it down a bit because they found that there are significant problems in what happens in the building of schools in the province. So their intervention will quite clearly address that matter. So we indicate the risks again, we indicate the remedial action by each one of those departments which are responsible for ensuring this. And in that last bullet on the remedial action is the point I've made about education and the size and the contracts of the school building program. Honorable members, that brings us to the end of the presentation, and we hope we've been able to provide adequate information. There are, Honorable Chair, many other members of this technical committee, and the Minister will direct how the questions are answered, but we're in your hands. Thank you, Minister.
Honourable Minister, you are leading the IMTT. Anyone that wants to add on to what has been said? We've got ministers and deputy ministers also present here. They're welcome to make their input as well. This is a very, very informative presentation, members. Very informative.
Thank you very much, Honorable Chair, honorable members, and the leader of the team, Minister Dlamini Zuma. I just wanted to highlight under the Department of Basic Education, Sport and Sport Development that there may not be that detailed information because we are still working on the submission, but critically is on the area of reconfiguration that we agree with the Minister of Basic Education that we need to put a concerted effort as the National Department of Sport and Recreation on the intervention so that we support on the side. But that will be dealt with under the administrator who is coming from the Department of Basic Education. There are so many things that have deprived people of the Northwest in participating in sport and recreation. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Minister. Thanks, Chair. Maybe just to highlight that irregularities have been articulated by the presentation. Natural irregularities, as you know, they are attended to for the purpose of either condonation or uncovering corruption and dealing with that. There's a list of areas where investigations will be taking place forensically, up to 12 on those. And there's also those, they cover Northwest municipalities and the province, and ongoing disciplinary hearings and criminal investigation. I just want to say that has been broken down to various areas of focus, be it criminal, be it forensic, be it affecting the province or affecting municipalities. So there's a clear plan to deal with those.
Thanks. I think that's all from our side. And over to you.
Thank you, Minister and your team. Honourable members, we acknowledge the presence of House Chair Nyambi. We are fortunate to have the House Chair with us, oversight over committees. We are fortunate to have in our presence the Honourable Chief Whip, Seiso Mohai. Honourable members, every one of you has expertise. Either you served in local government somewhere in your life, provincial government, national, in the private sector. Bring that expertise to this forum to assist and add value to do our work. That is the approach. We're not here to fight. We are here to get a solution, in this case, to take this province forward. MOU, excellent. A lesson learned from Limpopo. Limpopo's intervention took 2 years of my life. Yes, day and night. And that's one thing we learned. The MOU came too late. Mr. Matthews, a familiar face, there he sits. He was the administrator of education. A lesson learned. Another lesson learned, honourable members, law enforcement agencies, as this intervention proceeds, information is tabled, it's passed on to them. It runs in tandem. In Limpopo, it came last. They're still battling with cases of 2012. Another lesson learned. What is running throughout, and which we experience in Limpopo as well, suitable, qualified, skilled people. Yes. If you read the presentation on the Division of Revenue Bill, that's now an act, 2 billion rand annually is spent on capacity building. Comes from the fiscus. But then we get this. That's the reality. Unauthorized, irregular, wasteful expenditure. Honourable Minister, the Select Committee Finance is currently dealing with the 9 provincial treasuries. We're nearly through that. You find it in every province. And we asked the MEC for Finance, what is your action plan to address this? Why? We're trespassing the law. This is law. What is your remedial actions? What are you going to do in terms of financial misconduct? What comes out here, members, as we experience in Limpopo, the role of provincial legislators, PCs, portfolio committees, on Nyambi, are committees doing the oversight and their oversight in the right way? We must ask that question to ourselves, because we go to strat plan sessions. Departments go to strat plan sessions. They come to Parliament, legislators, table a APP. That oversight, quarterly, on a quarterly basis. Don't pick it up at the end of the financial year, it's too late. Pick it up in the first quarter. In the first quarter. This is your APP, what money has you spent? Where is it going to? Follow the money. The whole issue of management. Yes. The ACT, the Action Corruption Task Team, Anti-Corruption Task Team, is they also engage this because they played a huge role in Limpopo. Honourable members, I'm just highlighting a few issues. Are there questions for clarity? Because this was a presentation. On the 27th, we will definitely engage Honourable Deputy Minister Kungubela with National Treasury. Why? To give us that diagnostic analysis of the fiscal position of the province. We're doing with all 9 provinces, in this case under section through the intervention. Because then you get the real picture what's going on in each department in terms of spending and challenges, as well as the Auditor General will be invited to come and give his input on the North West Province. I just want to highlight that. I noted the hand of Honourable Nyambi, Honourable Kahula, Honourable Ter Blans, Honourable, I've got you, Chetty, Honourable Wana, I'm going down the, Honourable, yeah, Honourable Motla Shipping, Motla Shipping, he's from Northwest, that's his home province. We also recognize the presence of the chairperson of the Portfolio Committee on Health. Welcome to her as well. In that order, Honourable Nyambi, you can kick off. Please introduce yourself for just to assist our team to speak to you on their reply. Thank you.
Thanks, Chair. My name is Jomo, the name is Nyambi. I represent Mpumalanga in the NCOP. Let me join you to comment the leadership and the presentation that is detailed, that is assisting us to have a better sense. You will agree with me, Chairperson, that many a times when we are arguing with department that if you have DGs coming with deputy or ministers, to have a minister starting with that political overview is making our life to be much more easier. And that is why, in this instance, our life will be much more easier in dealing with what is in front of us. I don't have a lot of questions except to indicate that looking at what has been presented to us and the program that we have outlined that will assist us to have a better sense, and the constitution is clear in terms of what we're supposed to be doing as this ad hoc committee moving forward. But Minister, when DG was explaining the issue of those that are in section 101A and section 101B. Right from the beginning, DG, and towards the end, you said the Department of Community Safety and Transport Management. You highlighted that the problem is with transport management, not community safety. So I thought maybe you'll make us to understand, because in terms of our program, we'll be getting to Northwest, we'll have a series of meetings. So part of what we have to do is to have that information that will empower us to ask right questions and to have a better sense of understanding. And I was a little bit left out. I thought you were going to clarify it as in terms of elaboration to understand whether it's in terms of programs. Then I'm asking myself, if you look at Department of Basic Education and Sports Development, probably we can get to Northwest and they will say, no, it's Department of Education. Sports Development, it's exceptionally good. So I thought maybe you were supposed to do a little bit of elaboration for us to have a better sense. But otherwise, Chairperson, as you try to outline the program, the information that has been presented to us, besides what we have been reading, following, it's giving us a much more sense, and it's clear that the technical team has prepared something that will assist us moving forward, and it will assist us as a National Council of Provinces. Once we're sitting at plenary level to take a decision, we're taking it out of a very informed position. But I find that to be missing. Probably it might not be the only one. In any of the department where you have a combination of departments, only to find that it's one that is affected, maybe it will be good for us to get that so that we are able to understand. And with that background of Limpopo and with the hindsight now, there are things that we can do differently. And I think in this one, we are more than ready as long as we can be clarified. And from time to time, Minister, it must not be just the first time event. Whenever we have to have an opportunity of this nature, the seriousness that you are showing in leading your team, given the challenges that others are engaged somewhere, but it's making our life to be much more easier. It's what is missing many times, Minister, when we are dealing with select committee. Even yesterday, we had to deal with fires when members wanted to chase a department, and we said, no, let's deal with them. Probably at the right forum, we'll deal with the principals. But we commend an arrangement of this nature. I'm fine with the presentation, and I can now speak with authority out of a very informed position because it was simplified, and it's clear that the DG was ready with the technical team.
Thank you, Honorable Kula.
Thanks, Chairperson, Honorable Ministers and Honorable Deputy Ministers, colleagues. I also would like to commend the team for the presentation. It's giving us a lot of clarity. I just have 3 issues. The first one is in respect of page 33 and 34. They are the same. I don't know if there is any information that is missing, which should have been in page 34. The second one is the brief outline that we have been given by the verbally, that we have been given by the Deputy Minister of Finance. I feel it's very important information in respect of that categorization. If we can be finished with that categorization of where are the investigations and so on and so forth, so that, like my colleague was saying, we don't repeat the questions of issues that are already maybe in process. I do hope the Deputy Minister is listening and has got it. And the last one, Chair, is in respect of the departments that are under Section 101B. I also have got that concern that has been clarified there by the presentation in terms of saying the has been collapse of financial controls and governance and accountability despite governance structures being in existence. I had thought that the presentation was also going to go deeper and give us clarity as per department in respect of the roles that the accounting officers in those departments might have played or have not played leading into this situation. Thanks, Chair.
I can see Chairperson is finding it hard to mention my surname, but nonetheless, my name again is Tebuho. My surname is Mukwele. I'm from the Northwest. I represent the Economic Freedom Fighters in the National Council of Provinces. Firstly, I would like to thank the Minister and the team. The presentation that has been presented now, but my comment before I ask a question is that we know that there are legislations that prohibit the status quo of Northwest that could have been implemented before the province could be in the state where it is now. I will cite an example of, in terms of municipalities, we've got Section 154 and 139, be it 1B until to C or E. But I'm finding it difficult. We were supposed to wait until the community of Northwest make us aware that but nonetheless, Chair, I commend the work that has been done by the task team. And my question is on departments that are in section. If you can see, department that are in section 101A, if you can see Department of Local Government and Human Settlement. In your presentation, HOD, you did mention that your emphasis is more on human settlement. But in terms of local government itself has its own challenges. Now, I'm asking you if maybe in your investigations, will you find it that you separate the two departments? If you can see, local government is an independent department and human settlement is an independent department. We have challenges in local government itself. And once you put human settlement in section 101A, what about the Department of Local Government? What is it that we have found? We, in our COCTA Select Committee, we did receive interventions from Adibeng, section 1391B, Ngaka Mudiri Molema, 139, it was first 1391C, and then the new council came into being, and we continued with 139, it was 1391C, my apologies. Then the new, after new administration, it was then put under 1391B. But still, as you can see, there's no progress. My question is that in your processes, accordingly, we know that municipalities are independent, but there must be that intergovernmental relations that you inquire, you are supposed to do. What is it that maybe after everything that is going to happen with us doing our oversight with you and the team going to do your interventions, what is it that is going to be your recommendations, maybe with us in those municipalities that are already in interventions? And lastly, now I'm scared. 20 out of 22. The province has, I think, 26 municipalities, and 20 out of 22 did receive disclaimer. Out of that 20, 12 are dysfunctional. It's a call of a concern. Especially, I'm going back, HOD, to the issue of local government. I'm appealing that we put emphasis into local government, and maybe when you come up with your presentation again to us, you will then state to us what are the status of the local government. Lastly, Chair, it's on capacity. You know, I'm from Northwest. I can tell you things that you don't know. There is this practice whereby when Tebogo Mokweli is appointed to be a director in the Department of Social Development, and then she fails to perform her duties, be it found guilty of corruption, maladministration, or whatever, Tebogo will be taken out of Department of Social Development, and she's going to be placed in another department. Whether she qualifies or she doesn't qualify, for as long as Tebogo is going to serve the master, and then she's going to do what the master tells her. Now, in your findings, when you were doing your oversight, did you get, I saw that you are talking about lack of capacity, unqualified people being appointed. Are you telling us that in the whole of Northwest, those departments that are concerned here, that is what is happening in terms of circulation of personnel, whether they qualify or they don't qualify? Coming to the Department of Health, I don't write. I'm asking the HOD Minister. Coming to the Department of Health, let alone your administrative findings, the Department of Health in the Northwest, inally a challenge where the management of hospitals are centralized in the, I don't know whether it's the office of the Premier or office of the Minister, MEC, that is responsible for finances, economic development. Now, it is difficult for CEOs of the hospitals to perform their duties because of that. I heard you saying the administrator has been appointed in terms of the Department of Health. Now I'm citing this issue to you that needs to be looked into. Secondly, in the Department of Health, in terms of procurement management, I didn't see in your presentation where you do mention that Gupta-linked company, Mediosa, if I'm mentioning it properly. We want to know if ever there is an administrator, did that administrator briefed you in terms of the status of Mediosa, and Mediosa, the people of Northwest are not able to get the services they deserve, and the outsourcing of ambulances to Buthelezi Ambulance Emergency Services. Those two companies are Gupta. Buthelezi, I don't know which one,
Order.
but
Order.
it's from
Let the member
KZN, I
put a
assume.
question. Order.
That Buthelezi ambulance services or emergency services, those things are not mentioned in your report. Can we maybe get the briefing and the update in terms of those things? Thank you very much, Chair.
Thank you.
I hope you won't forget my surname. It's
I
Mokweli,
won't.
ne?
I won't. And my apology, I won't. And you made a valuable input as well. Honorable Ter Blanche.
Chairperson, thank you. I am Okiter Blanche and I am permanent member in the NCOP and I'm representing the Western Cape. Chairperson, I really want to start also by echoing my colleagues' sentiments about the report and the quality thereof. Thank you, Minister. I think it's quite good. Chairperson, I have extensive experience in supply chain management, in government procurement, to be exact 30 years, and also infrastructure development. And then also on top of that, law enforcement, 40 years. Anyway, my question is, you know, coming from this background, some of these issues, for instance, are we going to get the opportunity maybe to engage the different departments, like for instance, Public Works? The recommendations that they are making are the very issues, you know, they are proposing that we pool again, and I don't necessarily have a problem with that, pool the expertise back into one pool. Now that would have made sense, but the department started their own little small things for the very reason that Public Works is unable to perform. So it hasn't worked in the past, and what are we going to do now, you know, to ensure that it's working? My question is, Chairperson, are we going to engage them? That is really my question. And then just lastly, Chairperson, you know, we have, you know, been dealing with the different provinces for the last while, and we also went for oversights, and the very same issue runs like not the silver thread this time, but through the whole of government, inability to, you know, to perform infrastructure related issues, and then secondly also procurement. So I would very like to, you know, to be able to engage with these departments if we have the opportunity, because I don't necessarily agree with all their proposals. Thank you, Chairperson.
Chetty, Honorable Chetty.
Thank you, Chair. My name is Morgan Chetty. I'm a permanent delegate from KZN. Chair, I'll try and be concise and 2 pages in the report itself. But suffice to say that I'm also in agreement to much of the comments made by the Honorable Mokwela, because we've been dealing with these issues before. Firstly, Melissa, I'm a bit concerned. I'm glad to read that the Department of Local Government is under Section 101A. But if you look at the seriousness of the issues with dysfunctional municipalities, I mean, that's crisis. That surely should have been 1B, in my opinion, because that department has failed hopelessly. You've seen it, Chair. It wasn't part of what your intervention was going for initially, but I'm just saying personally it should have been a 1B and not a 1A, because they need intervention definitely. A concern and clarity seeking, page 8, the closeout report and the issue around item 5 on litigation. Has that report been submitted? And if not, what is the follow-up on that? Because I see you said litigation process to demand the closeout report from Agri Delight should the report not be submitted as requested. That, if you read Agri Delight, in all of this, even if you go to the 535 million overspend or irregular expenditures in page 31, 97% of that budget in that OTP was spent via irregular expenditure. And my concern is, why has there been resistance for that closeout report? I'm covered under the 20 of the 22 municipalities by if we go further through on the same page, we speak about 2.1 billion annual increase in irregular, fruitless, and wasteful expenditure. Now, this alone is shocking. We couldn't wait to come so far down the line to now decide that there is a problem there. Something went wrong somewhere long before this, and I think somebody must be held accountable for that. Honorable Chair, I think you in finance, you guys definitely need to deal with that. There's no such thing as we could wait for so long. I don't mind if this happened over a 2-year financial cycle, but this happened over like an 8-year financial cycle to take it at 2.1 to 16.3. And again, not to make it political, but clearly from this report, it's damning that we've got incompetent deployment of senior position, of members in senior positions. And that stems down to the fact that when you get incompetent deployment, it results in a lack of oversight, and that's where you get such irregular and irregular expenditure occurring. And I think, Chairperson, we took a decision when we met with the Minister of Kokta that those, when they finish here, I'll wait for them, that when those Section 56 and 57 employees who are found to have illegally or irregularly brought municipalities to collapse, that they cannot be appointed in any other sphere of government. I think here it will be a good example, Chairperson, for us to also make sure there's a recommendation that any of those defaulting department managers cannot now be redeployed to another department. Thank you.
Honorable Wana.
Thank you, Chairperson. Good morning to the ministers and the colleagues. My name is Tabiso Wana. I'm a permanent delegate from the Eastern Cape. Chairperson, I wanted to start with your remarks in terms of the lessons learned from Limpopo. Chairperson, when we can analyze what happened in the Limpopo, we cannot have an evidence what happened to those people who were attached with the responsibilities in that province. To me, there's no lesson if there's no evidence. Let me come to this report. I appreciate the report. But to me, this report, Chairperson, is silent in terms of detailing the creditors per department. Because in this State of the Nation address, the President and the provinces are saying the creditors must pay within 30 days. And this report is quite about the verification of those invoices in terms of goods received vouchers in spare, the tasks that were done in that province. Secondly, Chairperson, the report is silent about the relationship between the traditional leaders in that province with the department, sub-department within local government and the status currently in terms of trying to forge understanding between the traditional leaders and the department itself. Come to the issue, Department of Health. My question, Chairperson, now then the people who are victims are the masses. What was the plan, strategic planning in that province? And what was the monitoring of the department at national level? Because we've got a evaluation and a monitor section within the presidency office. Lastly, Chairperson, when you talk about the accruals, you analyze the companies and you analyze the workforce inside. That's why Nehao was so arrogant.
Chairperson, this morning there was I listened to the television. There's a municipality which the court has ruled that the ratepayers must take over. But this report is silent about that issue. When you go to the issue of human settlement, the structure, who are part of the engineers in that province, what did they did about those houses that were demolished as far back as 200 in 2013? And the Auditor General's report is silent about the remedial actions when they found that the departments are not doing as supposed to be as per the legislative part of PFMA. Thank you, Chairperson.
Honorable Motla Shopping.
All right. Thank you, Chair of Chairs. Thank you, Chairperson. Ministers, deputy ministers present here. I must perhaps start by introducing myself. Ke nna Consolation. Ke Motla Shopping. Ke tswa ko Bokone Bophirima, a province known as the Platinum Province, and proudly so. I must start by welcoming the presentation. That indeed the presentation gives quite a very good picture of what is indeed happening in my province. And however, I want to separate emotions from facts and begin to deal with serious issues that confront the ordinary people in that province. But I take it, Chair, I've been listening to my colleagues. I take it that we will be afforded the opportunity. The Inter-Ministerial Task Team has done its work and has arrived at a particular determination. Now, it is now the work of the National Council of Provinces and not be judgmental just upon receiving a report and saying this municipality and that municipality and so must be doing that without a thorough investigation and analysis of facts. Because they may arrive at a very different determination. It's a fact, that's human life. Now to start here and say a particular department has to be put on A or B, I respect your determination because it was after a thorough analysis and facts. But I want to understand one issue, which is key. And I think in terms of the Inter-Ministerial Task Team, you know, the workers, which is a concern to me, the workers have been on strike for quite some months in the province, doing nothing but earning. And I'm not sure what is it in terms of the law that you have applied to pay people who are not rendering a service. And we must be very careful not to set a precedence. Because if we allow such a situation to perpetuate, other provinces may follow and say we can do likewise and be paid. Because this thing has been dragging on for some months. I just want to understand, in terms of your quick wins, what is it that you have achieved to date in terms of getting the workers back to work? You spoke about, because I want to know very clearly when I go to the province, you spoke about irregular expenditure and wasteful expenditure. And when I looked and searched, there was no wasteful expenditure. Nothing was categorized under wasteful expenditure. And I'm not sure if that element was not an issue to your good selves. Now, colleagues, because I serve in the Finance Committee and the appropriation, we have been dealing with provinces and they have been giving their reports. I know for a fact that, for an example, Gauteng, I'm just making this example, and please, I'm not taking sides. Gauteng, the delivery is at the DDGs here, who presented to the committee, the DG. Gauteng is standing at 54% in terms of housing delivery. I'm making one example. Northwest is standing at 57%. You go over and over, but I'm sure that we are dealing only here with the Northwest, and we must confine ourselves to issues that confronted because there was a civil uprising in Northwest. But I'm saying, bearing in mind, we are getting reports of different provinces, and I can tell you they are doing worse than the Northwest province. I'm not sure, because I'm reading something out of your stakeholder engagements. That's something, and when I read something, I read it with a very clear understanding of what is it that influenced this type of a thing. Your stakeholders excluded 3 important players. The African National Congress is not a stakeholder here. And it's very interesting. The EFF is not a stakeholder that was invited to this meeting. I'm not sure how. And the DA. No, I'm not. I'm just, I'm just covering this thing to understand the politics of that province.
Honourable members, no one interrupted you when you asked your questions.
When I looked at the stakeholders, I was reading something in terms of the politics that I know in that province. And interestingly, the municipalities that they have chosen, you see, you're saying 20 out of 22 municipalities have collapsed and they are under financial distress. The stakeholders that are listed here, fortunately for me, they listed the few municipalities. And then you are saying 20 municipalities have collapsed. And then they only listed few. You must read something out of it. The stakeholders. Chairperson, when we dealt with the intervention in Limpopo, because I serve in the finance, that was directed to that committee, the intervention. There was a contestation of power between the HOD and the administrators when the intervention started, because there were no role classifications and responsibilities. And in terms of the law, there's an accounting officer and an accounting authority. Now, in terms of the intervention, because these departments has HODs, has DDGs, and you are going to bring an administrator or a coordinator, who is the accounting officer? Who is at the end going to respond to the cents and rents at the end of the day? The appointment of, you spoke about the appointment of the coordinator, the overall coordinator. Appointment. Are you advertising the post? What do I read about appointment? Or you are going to select amongst the people in government and take one who's the best one to go and become, and say we have appointed this person to lead. I just want clarity, because it says appointment of the coordinator of the intervention. Chairperson, thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Motlashupping, coming from that province. Honorable Makue from Gauteng.
Thank you, Chairperson. Thank you, Chairperson. Let me add my voice to those who welcome the very informative presentation, but add to that the appreciation for the work that has already been done, particularly to benefit the people of Northwest, because this is for me all about the people. We notice that when you mention on page 29, you didn't mention the social services there because you mention it other place in the document. And that is for us important. Education must continue, health services must continue, other social services must continue. You have said that. My first comment, Chair, is if we look at those steps, which we welcome on page 29, it would be helpful at some time, not in this session, if you do develop terms of reference for these interventions, to share those with us as this committee so that we know what needs to be done from our side. The second, Chairperson, is it would be helpful. Here you've given us time frames that I assume relate to the time frames for the intervention. As soon as that has been done, it would be helpful for us if you could give us time frames for the regularization of the situation, which is also something that you can give to us at a later stage. Those would be my two matters of contribution. Thank you, Chair.
Honorable Mohai.
Thanks, Chair. I also join those who says the background and context of the intervention as captured in the report is quite helpful, provide clarity in many ways. And also just a comment that this intervention coincide, I think, with the very challenging and turbulent times on the economic front. Broadly, we know what is happening in the country, and also the very constrained fiscal framework. So those who say that if there's anything that falls within the cracks, if there are resources that do not reach out to the people, they'll have a very devastating impact to the people. But I think I want if the DG could comment on the issue of capacity and requisite skill in the province. What give rise to the PMUs, which in many ways distort accountability lines? Was it solving a problem? And what is the extent of a problem with regard to capacity and existence of requisite skill in the Northwest province? Thanks, Chair.
Honorable Mohai is a former MEC for Finance of Free State and also Public Works. So he's got that expertise as a background. Honorable members, thank you for your questions. You went deeper into the issues. The process will be a diagnostic analysis of the problem. Development of an action plan for the intervention. Now, we saw part of that, but there needs to be more detail. Implementation plan. Now, this is where the administrators come in section 101B. Then a recovery plan. It's like a medical doctor doing an assessment on the patient. A recovery plan for the province, and then what Honorable Makue referred to, a strategy of the intervention task team to exit. And that was an issue in Limpopo, that exit strategy. The word communication is a very, very important word when you come to interventions. The one hand must know what the other one is doing. Take everyone on board from day one until you terminate the intervention. It will take out a lot of stress. And that's what we experience in Limpopo. continuous communication between administrator, HOD, informing MECs, although that authority has been taken away in terms of Section 101B for the time of the intervention. But keep them on board. Thank you, Honourable Minister, and your team. You can reply to the questions. It's now 20 to 11. We try to adjourn 1:45.
Thank you very much, honorable members, for the questions, the comments. I will just respond to some, and the team will respond to others. Let me just start by saying this is really the first report we're giving you. It's not an exit report. So some of the issues will come in the close-up report that you are already asking now. So I think we should just bear that in mind. And then secondly, I want to just say that there's been a few questions around local government and Section 101A. What the rationale is that the department, the national department, is going to work with the provincial department to identify those municipalities that need to be put under Section 139 and also where they need 154. So they are putting the department under Section 101A, but they are doing an assessment on the municipalities. Some may go under 139, A, B, C, whatever, depending on their diagnosis. So let's not now say the municipalities are not being attended to. It's the provincial department that's under 101A, so that they can work with the national to look at the municipalities one by one and decide what happens to them. So I just wanted to clarify that so that we know. So I know the few honorable members have raised that. So the human settlement is dealt with separately. Is that mine? Sorry. The wrong time, the wrong place. I'm so sorry. Let me just. It's one of the ministers, actually. I think they are asking what's. So I think that is clear. You will, at a later date, get that information when the assessment on all the municipalities have been done. The municipality that honorable member is talking about, that where the court judgment was, is in Coster. Yes. Of course, it's a very serious judgment because it means that if that precedent is set, other ratepayers can do the same, and it will erode both the standing of the municipality, but also the revenue base of the municipality. But of course, that's why it's very important to attend to the issues of service delivery in the municipality, so that we don't get situations where those who think they can opt out of the municipality. But I think the departments, they are appealing that decision. But I think it's a big lesson for all of us that we must attend to the issues of municipality early so that we don't get this situation. But the judgment is there, so there's nothing the IMTT can do about it except to analyze what its implications are and see whether the appeal, what happens with the appeal. And then the other area of I hear the issue of the capacity. We have said that there are issues there. But I don't think each department has done an assessment of whether one person who has been found to have not to have capacity or to have done wrong in one department has been sent. So I think in the course of their work, they might find that. But for now, as the IMTT, we don't have those reports from the department. You must also remember that this is just the beginning of the intervention. I also, some of the issues the Minister of Health will respond to, but as for Mediosa, that contract has been stopped and the matters that need investigation are being investigated. So that contract is not continuing. It has been stopped and investigations are taking place. The Buthelezi ambulance, I think the minister will say how far they've gone with that. I also just want to say that when we go to a municipality, we meet the council. In the council, all the parties that are represented are there, and we talk to them. So there's no party that we have deliberately excluded. When we went to this municipality, that municipality, when we spoke to the legislature, we spoke to everybody. So there was no deliberate exclusion. And the stakeholders, because we are from national, we don't know who the stakeholders in the province are. So they were invited. Those who came were not invited by us necessarily. Till now, all we said is we want to meet with the stakeholders. Some decided to come, some just came because it was said that this day we want to meet with stakeholders. So I think if the ANC and DA and EFF wanted to come, not through the government structures, but through the stakeholders, they would have come. There was no deliberate exclusion. So I just want to stress that. I also want to say that as for the workers, we engaged NEHAO as this IMTT to say they must go back to work. And they did go back to work quite some time ago. The ones who didn't go, and they said they wanted to meet with the Minister of Public Works and the Minister of Social Development, were those who work at the provincial office, because they said they have different issues. They are buildings. They are building, as far as they are concerned, as an occupational hazard, and they wanted to discuss that with the two ministers. But otherwise, we spoke to them, they went back to work. Of course, they had some of the issues they were complaining about were genuine, and the province began to address them, like the payment of bonuses and other payments that were supposed to be paid to them and were not paid. The province started addressing them, and so they went back to work. So it's not like we just left the situation to rage on. No, we engaged them, met with the leadership, the national and the provincial leadership of NEHAO, and asked them to go back to work. The other the fruitless and wasteful expenditure, maybe it wasn't highlighted in the report because the amounts are not as big as the amounts of irregular and unauthorized. But it's there, but it's smaller amounts. Maybe that's why it's not, because this is just a summary. So maybe that's why it's not here. But if I can tell you, when we went to Ditsobotla, in that municipality, definitely, even Madibeng, definitely. So I'm sure even the other municipalities where COPTA has been, they are there. It's just that we were highlighting the two because they are really big amounts. The other issues that I want to deal with, yes, in a later from, I think it was the Honorable from Gauteng, saying in the next or other presentations, yes, we will give you the time frames once we've finished our MOUs and all that. And of course, the issues of implementation, recovery, exit, and communication, yes, it's very important. That's why last week we decided to communicate with the executive, with the auditors, with the legislature, with the premier coordinating committee, with mayors, with MMs, so that everybody knows what's going on, and we will keep that communication. But the real work is going to start now, when the now departments are going to drill in those issues, in those areas. Maybe I should leave the other issues to the team. I will just on the agri-delight, because the minister is not here, they have asked for the close-up report, but they just say if they don't give them, they will litigate. So we don't know whether they are not going to give us or not. So that's what the minister has said, that they are asking for the close-up report, but if there is resistance, then they will litigate. I think on the other issues, I will ask the team to take some of the questions, because we are here as a team. Human settlement will start. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Thank you very much. No, thank you very much. This one. This one.
Oh. It's clear that I haven't been to NSOP for a long time. Thank you, Chair. Chair, I think our leader covered many questions that were raised. There was a question about the human settlement and local government being separated or being lumped together. You would know in the Northwest, it's local government. The MEC is responsible for local government and human settlement. And really, there's nothing wrong with that, because there's a link between the two departments. But I think what is important for us is now with this intervention, when we start, and I must emphasize, and I'll tell you later, we opted for 1A, 101A, not 101B. And when we appoint those HODs or directors that are going to be working on this intervention, we'll be very conscious of separating at least the HODs to focus on human settlement and to focus on local government. Now, this has been a process that is underway, because we saw a challenge of having one HOD dealing with both. But even if the department and the MEC at the top is attending to both, it's important to divide the different departments from the HOD so that they focus on the work they're doing. Chairperson, we chose 1A because we've seen the challenges. I mean, there was a question here, why did we leave it till now? This is the intervention because, you know, it seems as if there are more departments that are in the verge of collapsing. But the fact of the matter, there are few departments that were in the northwest already, like the human settlement. We've noticed when the targets were not met, that there's something wrong, and then the team went in to try and assist. And in fact, it started way around about 2012, 2013, where even the MINMEX were involved in trying to assist and rectify some of the challenges that were happening in Northwest. Not only in Northwest, we do that. MINMEC is meant for making sure that national and provinces are, you know, are in power when it comes to challenges that we experience in different provinces. Now, human settlement was there already, identify some of the challenges. We're in a process of strengthening the human settlement department. Hence, we said taking over will not help us because we're part of a process that we're strengthening. Now, I know that there are challenges around human settlements. Most of them happen way, way before this intervention. Talking about housing, block housing, and houses that haven't been finished. Not that we must still put that report, in fact, even in our team. Not that there were no interventions. Some of these, one would say, why didn't you act? Some of these challenges, there's an action that was taken. Some of the action were referred to law enforcement agencies. There were court decisions that are saying that's a crime scene, don't even touch that place. So why some of the things are being highlighted now, it's because there's this broad interventions. But there's work that has been happening in Northwest and in different departments. So, yeah, I think I want to end there, Chair, in fact, with emphasizing that for all of us, this is the beginning. So whatever arises here about the report, as we go deeper into our work, surely we will bring some of the report, and NCOP, when they go for oversight, they will see for themselves as well. Thank you very much.
Definitely, yes. Ombudiem.
Oh, this one. Thank you, Chair. I think I want to echo the statement that says the convening minister has dealt with a lot of trickier questions. That makes our job a little bit easier. I thought one wanted to say, just to repeat something, that maybe we should apply our minds to the fact that if you are an adjudicator or a magistrate or a judge, and the citizens are subjected to an irrational authority, what would you do? Such a huge question that must always be answered. So in other words, if you want to continue to be an authority, you must be a rational authority. The other issue is traditional leaders were spoken to. I remember when we were dealing with the stakeholders, they wanted to be addressed separately, and that was done. Yeah. On the issue of national monitoring, I think the convening minister has said This is the beginning of the intervention. And it's going to reveal a lot of weaknesses, even if those are national, what to call, weaknesses. There's no weaknesses which is going to be dodged. If it comes from national, it will be dealt with. So there's no attempt to run away, but this is a catalyst maybe to deal with a number of other issues. I think the honorable member answered himself with regard to comparing provinces, that we are dealing with what is in front of us, and we'll always deal with whatever that brings itself in front of us at all material times. There is also a statement around stakeholders' view on which municipalities are functional and not functional. Our records, as presented by DG, are factual records of the AG. They are presented exactly in that fashion. We would not know why then the stakeholders have selected particular municipalities. Ours are backed by AGs, what to call as records. On the area of terms of reference from the honorable member from Gauteng, I just wanted to take a chance, Minister, and say, my understanding is that the identified areas of interventions define terms of reference in each and every area. All the areas of weaknesses that we have actually identified, they determine your terms of what to call of reference. So when you go there, you are informed by those areas you have identified. Generally, those are little points that I wanted to make.
Thank you. Thank you, Chairperson. As the leader of the intervention team has said, it is the Mediosa contract has been terminated. The reason that it was so easy to terminate it even before the investigations are finished is because there's a provision in the contract that said if services are not provided for a particular period, you can terminate the contract. So it was not terminated because the investigations are through any of the investigating forces. That those investigations are going on. But remember, on 2nd of March, when I went there, Mediosa workers themselves were already on strike also. There were two groups on strike. It was NEHAU and Mediosa workers themselves. And when I visited the project, I met both. And I found that NEHAU is on strike because they are angry that Mediosa has been paid and they were not. Mediosa workers were angry because they never got their salaries. And since then, that time, they never came to work. And so that's why it was terminated. But you could not do the same with Buthelezi ambulance because investigation has to go on. But what happened is that the Buthelezi ambulance was hired specifically in the contract for what is called P1 patients, meaning the very high priority patients, to convey them between health facilities. There is P2 patient and P3 patient. The Buthelezi was not contracted for that. But unfortunately, after being given the contract, then that P2 and P3 were also extended to them. That's why it became so wide and expensive. So what we did was just to follow the contract and convene them, and confine them to P1. That's what they are doing now. P2 and P3 has been stopped, but it will be so until the investigations are through. Thank you.
Thank you, Minister. Minister Kasa.
Thank you very much, Chair. Just a few points to assist the honorable members down there around issues of sport and recreation. I think first and foremost is the fact that when the department and the reconfiguration in the 5th administration started, it was just a program under DPE, and it only, in fact, and it also left out recreation. So it was only added into the 4 in 2017-18 financial year. And the AG over the years did not even really delve into that program other than focusing on the issues of basic education. But in the overall, as we are looking into the situation, we are picking that the overall internal control issues continue to be an issue, and it cuts across, and therefore, even in the funds that we channel into Northwest around sport and recreation, those controls continue to be an issue. So there are issues of leadership there are issues of financial and performance management, and issues of record keeping that makes them not even be able to account even on the monies that we give them. And on top of it, it also makes them not to even account on the numbers in terms of the targets that they set themselves in order to get the funding from the Department of Sports, Recreation, Sports and Recreation. So there are various of those matters that have even resulted in us withholding money as part of punitive measures to encourage them to report on the targets. So that in itself has made it such that participation in Northwest around sport went down, whilst the province has been known to be doing well in sport. It has since regressed. Tournaments have not been sitting. If I can just make an example, around a target they set themselves for active participation in the province. They set themselves a target of participants of about 188,000. They only could meet about 19,000 of those. So there was just focus and bias on basic education. And schools that were supposed to get equipment, out of 120 they targeted themselves, only 36 could. So it's an indication that there was no focus at all on that. So as part of our intervention is to make sure that we are able to beef up on that participation and put in the requisite capacity, because capacity that has been there is at a very low level, and therefore it cannot really bring this focus and also accounting. There are all other aspects of irregular expenditure and employees who are doing business with state that we are unleashing out of the reports, and the fact that it is below norm in terms of its performance. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Minister.
No, thank you. Just a small thing. Perhaps DG. Yes, DG, I was just saying perhaps on the list of stakeholders which we met, yeah, the stakeholders which we met, I noticed that SAFTU is missing. SAFTU was there and they actually presented a very long report, and I suspect that they also presented it in writing. So if you could just include them, thank you.
Let's correct the submission that I added.
Thank you. I just want, before I give the DG to respond to the issue of PMUs, I just want to say that there was a question about where were we as monitoring and evaluation. I think we have learned a lesson. We will make sure that in future we try and be proactive. Yes. Thanks. Yeah, watch.
DG, no, honourable members, it's a function at the national level, but it's a function in the Premier's office. And we are pleading as finance and appropriation, take that down to regional level. Bring it closer to the people in terms of monitoring and evaluation, that you are on the spot and not here at the end of the year. Then it's too late. DG. Order. I know you're excited, but order, DG.
Thank you very much, Honorable Chairperson and Honorable Members and Honorable Ministers. Just on the question of PMUs, our assessment basically in the Northwest is that whilst the establishment of a project management unit is not really a bad thing, It is allowed for in law, and they can be established under particular circumstances. Our findings, though, indicate some kind of excessive use of PMUs in this instance. And the real concern is not about whether a PMU exists or not. It's the irregularities that then emerge from the PMU itself. And that's really the concern we have. So, Honorable Chief Whip, the issue here for us is we are aware of the number of PMUs that are established directly in the office of the Premier, and there are others that are established directly in departments. Our audit would have to conclude the assessment, and we say there, I've just brought up that slide very clearly, we say that we will assess all of the PMUs because we're looking for what indeed are the common threads, what gave rise to those PMUs. In certain instances, we think it may be capacity. In others, it's about creating a transversal service in a central point to promote efficiency. But all in all, the result is not a good one. And therefore, we'll be able to differentiate the investigations that are going to be done in the OTP particularly will straddle into the ones that are not even at OTP, but the ones in departments. What we're looking for is what criteria was used to establish the need for one. Was it because you had lack of staff, or were you trying to promote efficiency? What is the result, and why did you then have transgressions as a result of the operations of the PMUs? So hopefully we'll be able to of a PMU almost undermines the responsibilities of the accounting officer in particular instances. Our sense generally is that whilst there are capacity issues, it doesn't appear as if capacity was the main driver. It may have more likely been efficiency than capacity of officials as such, and a failure of competent officials in most instances in our interaction with the officials. Thank you very much.
Anyone else from the Director Generals? Yes, sir.
Thank you, Chairperson, honorable ministers and members. I think my points have been covered by the chair of the MTT on local government matters. Safe to say that just to clarify that when we say there are 22 municipalities that we didn't say they have collapsed. They have a bad audit outcome, but they are not collapsed. In any case, on the bad audit outcome, now lately the Eastern Cape has actually overtaken the Northwest. But having said that,
number one.
We have mentioned 12 municipalities that we said are dysfunctional. And maybe it might just be useful, Chair, just to share with what those municipalities are. Because we are talking Ditsobotla, local municipality, Mamusa, Tswaing, Lekwata Imani Naledi, Makwasi Hills, Ngakamudiri Mulema, Mahikeng, Ramsere Muilwa, Madiveng, Hetlen Refir, and Bujanala district. Now, those are the 12 where we are now going to seriously zoom into, and those are the instances where we'll be coming to you saying, okay, here we believe there must be a section 139 B. In fact, in some of these municipalities, like Mamusa, because we're looking at three main areas when we say the municipality is dysfunctional, and that's the financial management, governance, and service delivery. We look at mainly at those areas. And when we talk governance, it's both administrative and political. In some cases, the political governance is really the cause of most of the troubles. For example, in Mamusa, when we visited there were two speakers. So, and no one is, you know who is the actual speaker, but they came as speakers. And you know, now that just shows the governance issues there. And then you get to Ditsobotla, where, I mean, again, their service delivery collapse. I mean, you find a situation of spillage of sewer all over and so on. And as a result of that, and I think we need to mention this, the IMTT decided that, look, this one, we can't say we're still at a diagnostic thing or analyzing and so on. this problem needs, because it's even a health hazard for the people. The IMTT decided, no, we're going to put the army engineers to address that sanitation problem. And as we are talking, that is being addressed with our MISA engineers from Kokta and the army engineers to resolve the issue. We're doing the same in Madibeng as well. So where there are those dire issues, we don't wait. You know, we zero into it and start and do it there and there. The issues of traditional leaders, it's not quite the traditional leaders. That has not reached a point of Section 100 intervention, in our opinion. The department is dealing with the issues of disputes on traditional leaders, you know, and they're adequately dealing with it. I know DM Bapela is seized with the issues of disputes with traditional leaders and so on. So I think we will be coming back and indicating through the committee how we're going to deal. There was a question about, because there are some municipalities like Madibeng and Ngamudiri Mulema, which had interventions, you know, the Section 139B before. What difference is this one going to make? Now, what we have realized is that in those municipalities where there was Section 1391B, which was where the administrators were appointed, we found that there was deliberate efforts on the part of those municipalities, whether at the political level or official, and so to basically sabotage the administrator, so that then they will say, no, this thing doesn't work, so don't even try it again. You did it, it didn't work. So we believe that in the context of Section 100, where the province, where the national executive is, you know, that context, we believe that if we put an administrator, that administrator needs to be supported. You need to have the support architecture for that administrator in order that it works, because otherwise people become negative, and whatever that the administrator comes up with to turn around the situation, they shelve it, they don't implement. So I think that was the problem before. But it doesn't mean that Section 139B or the administrators are useless and so on and so forth. It's just the...
Good. Yeah.
Thank you, Chairperson. I thought this report were given a chance to make questions and recommendations.
Okay, just repeat, I can't hear.
I thought in this report we were given a chance to seek clarity questions. By doing that, we're not policing any person, and I was not making any comparison. I'm aware in the Eastern Cape, municipalities have got a debt of 13.5 billion. So I don't want to be offended when I'm asking questions just because I identify myself as an Eastern Cape. That member, to me, if he's an honorable member, I don't think he was referring just because I was asking questions. I don't want to be offended. I'm just dealing at national issues. To come here and compare my province with the current situation, I'm saying everybody who's affected in terms of corruption must be accountable.
Well, that is in the State of the Nation address as well, by His Excellency the President. So I don't think the intention is here to offend people or members. I don't think that is the intention. Maybe there's a misunderstanding. Honourable members, can we give the team the opportunity to reply and then go
Order,
to
Chair, order.
any follow-ups, please?
Chairperson, you are also missing the point here. The person who was speaking was actually answering Honorable Mutashuping on a statement that he made about 2020 and 20 municipalities having to have been collapsed. He was not referring to any member here, so please let us not bring feelings here, like you said from the start, Chairperson. Thank you.
Honourable Nyambi, we have to give the team members the opportunity to reply, please. You must assist us. Yes, sir.
Chair, quickly rule me out of order if I'm out of order. My understanding of what we're supposed to be doing today the Constitution is very clear. We've extended the invitation to the IMC to come and brief us about the process and what is happening. Then after this, we're still going to engage other stakeholders so that when we go to the NCOP in terms of the Constitution, we're able to make a very informed decision. Let us not be tempted to make a mistake and view the IMC as if now they are representing all the stakeholders. So my appeal to you, Chair, is that now, not unless there is a clarity-seeking questions in terms of what was presented to us, that is still missing to assist us so that when we go to Northwest, when we have the acting premier coming as per our program, we are more informed. That is why when I was doing my first question, I said out of what was given to us, we are in a position now to have a better sense and appreciation of the challenges facing Northwest. But now I see that we tend to confuse what is supposed to be doing, and they are no way representing the challenges of Northwest, but they have done their own assessment and they have presented to us, and we've got a better sense and better appreciation. So what is left now, Chairperson, is for us to have the other stakeholders, and then we'll be more informed.
If you've listened to my introduction, that's precisely what I said. Thank you for summarizing it again. DG, over to you. Let me listen to you. Note the member, we'll take you after the replies.
Yes, thank you, Chair. I wanted to add to the question about the capacity of the department. I'm DG Mbulelo Changana, responsible for human settlements. We've done an extensive capacity audit of the Department of Human Settlements. We're very clear about the level of technical capacity that is required for the department to perform its job. But the reality is that when you do an audit, you have to start at a strategic level. This Department of Human Settlements, for almost 5 years, has changed the HODs 4 times. The current HOD was only confirmed a year ago, I think almost 2 years ago. The MEC was responsible for social development, acting as MEC for human settlements for a very long time. She was only confirmed, I think, more than a year ago as MEC for human settlements. So that tends to destabilize the organization at a strategic level, and that's critical. Because it doesn't matter how hard you try to fill up all the gaps at a technical level. If at a strategic level there's an instability, you're not going to go far. We've worked with the HOD to look at what needs to be done. The diagnostic report that has been presented to IMTT, and I'm sure it's going to come here as well, was signed jointly by ourselves and the HOD and the MEC. They have agreed on what needs to be done. It was not imposed to them. The second part is the question of block projects and remedial work that needs to be done. I think there was a question about that. It's in 2 phases. There's a block of flats that were blocked more than 3 years ago. The project was approved in 2011. For all intents and purposes, that block of flats, which is a block project, is a crime scene. This is what Minister was talking about. The NDPP went to court, and the court issued what is now called the prohibition order and the preservation order. All that information is available. There's nothing you can do until the NDPP hands over the site to the department, because as things stand, the NDPP is investigating that site. There's mischief involved in that particular project. And we made it very clear to the department and to the province that the project has to be unblocked once National Treasury and DPP has completed the exercise. Both National Treasury and DPP have investigated that project. You can't miss it. If you go to the Northwest, you'll see it. It's called Marang Block of Flats. It's a block project, and that project has to be unblocked. We're very clear about it, and that's the point that Minister was trying to clarify, that it is a crime scene. And once it's declared as a crime scene, it means that the law investigators must manage it, and once they've concluded the investigation, they have to hand it over to the department for the department to unblock it. The last challenge in the province is another block projects, and these projects were blocked when municipalities were still responsible for building houses. And you can see them, even the project names, we've got a list, a comprehensive list, but it will be presented to the IMTT. If you read the project number gives you the date when projects were blocked. Some of them were blocked in 2000, some of them were blocked in 2001. There are those who were blocked in 2003, and some of them were blocked in 2008. So we've got a long list of block projects, more than 5,000 units that were blocked in the Northwest. Unblocking them, there is a process that has to be followed, and that process has to be done together with the Auditor General. We have to make sure that we go to the AG, we go to National Treasury, because you can't pay twice for the same product. In fact, it's wrong to call it a product because it was an incomplete product. Those units were never completed. It's either the service provider vacated the site, or the service provider went under, or it's either the department didn't manage the project properly. There are a number of reasons why projects end up being blocked. It's either the engineers didn't do their part, or it's either there's corruption, or there is mischief. So we've got all of that. We've got all of that information, but it will be presented to the IMTT. I don't think today was meant to talk about project specifics, but there was a question about remedial work. There was a question about block projects, and I thought that it's important to bring it to the attention of this committee to know that we are on top of that business, and we know exactly what needs to be done. Where there is mischief, I think law will take its course. Where there are contractors that have done some work, we will red list those contractors, and they will be red listed on the list of contractors that are on the database, in the NHPRC database. So I think that's an important point to make. Northwest took a conscious decision in 2009 to reverse that decision which was made to use municipalities as implementing agencies. And that was a conscious decision taken by the province because municipalities were failing to manage some of these housing projects. The majority of these housing projects that are blocked are projects that were managed directly by municipalities. You can go to Matibeng, you can go to Matlosana, you'll find those projects. In Rustenburg, you'll find those projects. In fact, in the Greater Bujanala, you have a significant number of those projects that are blocked. We know where they are. We know what needs to be done. The biggest challenge, and I think this is an important point to make here, is that Northwest, in the last financial year, they underspent by about R1 billion. We took 300 million rands and gave it to those provinces that are performing. The 700 million rands was given to HDA to manage the projects that are not managing very well. And that process is a process that was taken by MINMEC. It's a decision that was taken by MINMEC because we can't take a decision if it hasn't gone to MINMEC. The reality is that the technical capacity in that department, the Department of Human Settlements in the Northwest, is non-existent. Thank you, Chair.
Anyone else that wants to add? No one? Are there any follow-up clarity-seeking questions? And let's start there. Ubamotla Shuping, Chetty, and Monomokwini. Right.
Chair, thank you. I need to clarify something first. You know, for members of the public to understand this process, that the meeting here was specifically called for the IMTT to brief the National Council of Provinces. And this meeting cannot make a determination on the intervention, whether it goes ahead or not. There's a narrow understanding. I'm answering somebody here on 408 who's watching. Chair, but I must also bring something into perspective. Deputy Minister of Finance, I deliberately said, and if you listen to me, I did not ask a question. I said, there are provinces in this country, in terms of me serving in other committees, that are doing very bad. But then we are not dealing with those provinces. We are dealing with the Northwest. Because if you look at the situation that prevailed in the Northwest, really needed an intervention. And that is the interpretation that I was not asking a question, Honorable Chetty, I was making a statement.
That report will go to the Minister and the Deputy Minister of Finance after we concluded our interaction with 9 provincial treasuries. That's findings. Honorable Chetty, and then Honorable Makwe.
Chair, firstly, I want to thank the DG on human settlements because he clearly vindicated my request earlier on. You see, we mustn't represent our biasness for our political parties or the biasness for the provinces we come from, but serve the people because of the crisis that provinces are under. We're not here to protect anything. The report is here, we're talking to the report. Now, you see, Chairperson, when I initially looked at it and I asked the question, why was the local Department of Local Government and Human Settlements not under 101B instead of A? Because I believe they needed an administrator to go and deal with it. They cannot deal with just having that oversight on directives. And now when the DG on Human Settlements concurred with the crisis in that situation, in that department, together with local government. I'm not asking them to change it, but I'm just saying we vindicated on that. Thank you, Chair.
There will be a continuous engagement by this team, the IMT, with that province to go further investigate what's going on. This committee will invite the IMT back again to come and reply after their further engagements. This is a continued process. It's a process. We're not stopping today. Honorable Mokweni and then Honorable Makwe.
Thanks, Chair. Thank you very much for the responses that we have received, Honorable Minister and DG. I said you are an HOD earlier. DG, thank you very much. But again, as I'm listening to your responses, now I'm now thinking about other projects that are implemented in the Northwest by the name of Setsokotsani and small dorpies, villages and cities. You know, that's where you get departments converting in one area with the resources. Maybe they will go to Moses Kotani, that's municipality that I come from. They will go to Moses Kotani local municipality, trying to address a certain challenge that is faced in that municipality. But what happens is that when officials move to Moses Kotani, they move with the resources of their departments. Department of Health will come with their ambulances. We don't know who is pouring petrol in those ambulances. Department of Public Works will come with their excavators and everything. We don't know who's taking care of those things, and the personnel itself that is there, who is paying their overtimes, who is paying their traveling allowances and all those things. That matters are not addressed in your report. I don't know, maybe in the next report, because you are saying you are going to come up with another report, you'll include Setsokotsani. That is the real project that has messed Northwest, and that small dorpy villages and what and that some trek, some werk. There are so many kidi projects they've really collapsed the province. And I want to address Honorable Motlashuping. You know, Honorable Motlashuping, you don't have to be personal or emotional when we deal with these issues. Some of the questions that you are addressing, DG and Honorable Minister, you were not there, you were still in AU when we were asking these questions to the ministers, deputy ministers, about the status of the Northwest. We have been asking for what is really happening in the Northwest. Why Okare Northwest is now starting to become Western Cape. It's a republic within a republic. Why is it now that Premier Mahuma Pelu is like a president or some kind of a hero to be worshipped or Jesus to be
No, honourable
worshipped?
member, no. We're not
Now,
going that route.
now,
Stick to your
that
initial question.
that is why I'm reiterating to what we have been telling Parliament and we have been cautioning, and you were silent. That is why we are in this mess in that province. Lastly, Chair, the Department of Education, if you can see, Northwest used to be #1. But since a taxi driver was taken to become an MEC, we have regressed from #1 to #5 or #6 in the province. So you can see what really, we are really in a serious challenge in that we are appealing to you guys. You must open up your ears, open up your eyes. As we are deliberating here, people are sending us evidences. I have evidence from Matlosane. An employee was suspended because he exposed the illegal and irregular corruption that was happening in that municipality, and for doing that he was suspended. So I have an evidence of that communication. I don't know where must I give it to minister or must I give it to DG? When you go back and do your investigation, you follow up to those allegations. Thank you very much.
The IMT noted all issues we experience in our constituencies, and Honorable Nyambi mentioned it time and again, especially when we take Parliament to the people, bring that issues direct to the NCOP, take it to your provincial legislator. Don't wait a year and then address it, it's too late. So, noted, Honorable Makue.
Chairperson, I want to bring us back to the purpose of this meeting. It was meant to receive a progress report from the Inter-Ministerial Task Team on the Northwest Province. Chairperson, in my opinion, we have done that with distinction. I therefore want to propose that what we do now is we release the ministers, if you so rule, Chairperson, and then we, as members of the NCOP, want to have further discussion related to our plans, our next meeting, and things like that. If you need to have that done in this meeting, we can do that. Alternatively, Chair, that we just adjourn the meeting immediately. Thank you,
You've
Chair.
got some magic, you are reading my mind.
Okay.
Honourable Minister, order. This was a very valuable, informative engagement. This is the beginning. There will definitely be more engagements with the IMT, definitely before we submit our first report to the NCOP, because members also mentioned issues that is noted by the IMT. So, Honourable Minister, thank you for bringing your team for this engagement, for every minister, deputy minister, every director general, every PLO. Let's work together and pull this cart that we enhance service delivery in that province. Yes, you're right. We're getting the full picture of each province when we deal with the provincial treasury. And that report is a very important report that's going to the Minister and Deputy Minister of Finance. But I want to take it a step further, that we will represent our provinces in the Finance Appropriations Committee, send that presentations to our colleagues in the NCOP that sits behind or before you, in front of you, but also to the legislator. That we are all on the same page, addressing issues that have to be addressed, and not wait for taking Parliament to the people or a provincial week. That is supplementary. Minister, we're going to release you. with the other ministers and deputy ministers and the DGs, etc. We're going into housekeeping. Last word from you.
Thank you. Thank you again. And there was just a question about information. You can send it to the DG, yes. And I can assure you our ears are very open and our eyes are very open. So, okay.
Thank you. Just Kokta, DG, you mentioned municipalities. Can you give that list to Shamila Pierce? She's our committee secretary. That will assist us in a report. Is there other info that you need? You're fine. Fantastic.
I've looked at this list, at this program. Is it that the next interaction with yourselves will be when? Because I see we are mentioned in November.
That is a draft subjected to the program committee's approval. So it's just to get some idea what do we want to do. That can change the dates, but you will be informed, Minister, well in advance.
Yes.
As soon as that is adopted by the program committee, it will go to you.
That would help us so that we plan accordingly.
Yeah, that meeting is next Wednesday, the program committee.
Okay, thanks.
On adoption, it will go straight to your office.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Minister. You are released. Honourable members, our next engagement will be on the 27th of June, the whole day, starting 9 o'clock in the morning until 18 hours in the afternoon. Now, you're going to ask me why the whole day? That we have enough time to engage with the province. Why? Because we're calling the National Treasury, we're calling the Auditor General. So open that whole day in your diary. If we adjourn at 3 o'clock, fantastic, then we adjourn at 3 o'clock. And then we will take it from there. Between myself, no, just hang on, I'm still busy. I'm still busy. Between myself, the Chief Whip, and Honourable Nyambi, we will look at the way forward after the program meeting. That we will do and come back to you. Yes, Honourable Chetty and then Honourable Dlamini.
Thank you, Chair. Chair, you know that as politicians, we're very suspicious. As politicians, we're very suspicious by nature. Now, I'm just concerned, you got the next meeting.
Sorry to interrupt you. There's lunch prepared in the old assembly restaurant because members interrupted me now. I forgot to announce it.
Can I continue? I'm just concerned, Chair.
Tell them to tell them.
Yes, exactly.
Chair, can you send somebody to tell them?
Can you just inform them,
Otherwise
please?
it will be wasteful expenditure.
Yes.
Add it to the list. Yeah. You see, Chair,
Chetty.
I'm concerned because you're saying the meeting is on Thursday, the 27th of June. Now, I looked at the calendar. The 27th of June is a Wednesday.
Not all of us will always attend every meeting.
Chair, before you decide to answer without listening, please listen, then answer. My question to you is, you've got the meeting set for Thursday, 27th of June. In my calendar, the Thursday is the 28th. The Wednesday is the 27th. So my question is, which date is it? So please listen before you answer. That is Eddie, please stay out of this. You're not the chair. You see, people must read the agenda and look at the draft before they start commenting.
The 27th, Wednesday. It's a Wednesday. Is that clear? A Wednesday. 27th of June, 2018.
Yeah,
9 o'clock the morning until 6 o'clock the evening. Honourable Dlamini.
No, Chair, I'm sorry for that. I might have missed the part. I had thought that the program is going to be presented to the committee and will approve the program. I don't know whether I missed it or because, as you know, that some of us who are chairpersons, we've got. I hear that you are saying it's not all of us who are going to be here, but it's only fair that we present the program to the committee and a committee approves the program.
I give the opportunity to the committee to express themselves on the program. Honorable Motla-Shooping.
Chair, I looked at the program from my personal point, and looking at it has covered the discussion that we had last meeting, where we requested that at all costs we should avoid having meetings on Friday. And that has been addressed in this program, and I see no hassles insofar as this program is concerned, and I move that this program be adopted.
Honourable members, this was done in consultation with the Chief Whip. Everything that affects the program, the chairperson of this committee will do in consultation with the Chief Whip. There's no clashes. And what advised me was the framework of the NCOP until November. So it is subjected to be changed, referring to the program meeting, that's meeting on next Wednesday. I noted Honourable Mokoeni and then Honourable Nyambi.
Thanks, Chair. I think we are agreeing in principle. But I think Honorable Kathy, as always, she's making noise.
Didn't ask for that.
But
Please.
what I'm saying is, listen, I'm assisting you, Chair. I'm saying we are agreeing, but what Honorable Kathy was asking is just the process. Just this program should be given to us, and then as a committee we endorse it as our legal document, and then we move with it. If ever there is some amendments, those amendments will be communicated to members, and I second Honorable Motla-Shooping that let's adopt the program as it is, and then we will do, if ever there's amendments to be done, we will be informed accordingly. Thank you.
That's very progressive. Thank you, Honourable Nyambi.
It's one issue, Chair. Well, let me commend the team for today's meeting, but I want to raise one important issue moving forward. The leadership led by the Chief Whip decided to make sure that you, in your committee, have got permanent members and alternate members. And today, everybody was invited to be part of this meeting. So moving forward, it will always be in order if you are, whether we are permanent or alternate, because Honorable Katie is correct, others are leading some other committees. We are going to have a commitment, or whether you are from an opposition, but you have somebody that can come in on your behalf, so that it must not be clumsy that you are here, you have this team, and then you have almost the entire part of us showing that now it's empty. We started in a full force, all of us present. If you are going to be getting out of the meeting, make a necessary arrangement. Like we have members that were on the far side, and almost all those that were on the far side were part of the meeting till to the end. But if I was here and I'm going to leave, it was going to be a good impression to make an arrangement for them to come and occupy the space this side. Unlike having a situation where you have the team that is still intact, and on our side then you have empty chairs. I don't think it's a good impression about us and how we view what is in front of us as NCOP. So it's an issue, Chair, that I'm raising to all of us as a start, that moving forward we must not allow it to happen. We must work as this team, so that once we go to a plenary and even the public can appreciate that all of us are giving the necessary attention. And even if you have got other commitments, let me come to you and I tell you in advance, I must not surprise you when we're here and come and try to tell you that now I'm attending something else. That's my plea to all the members, Chair.
I check the Z list every morning, so I know there's other meetings running concurrent. But in consultation with the Chief Whip, we decided to call everyone, ad hoc committee members plus the alternates, that we start on the same page with this first meeting. So from here on, we will go on with the ad hoc committee. If those members are not available, the alternate comes in. That will be the process. But thank you for sensitizing us on that point. Honourable members, with that, we are closing this meeting. The lunch is ready, I believe, in the restaurant, so you can go there for lunch. It does say ad hoc committee intervention, and then enjoy your meal. Thank you very much. The Old Assembly restaurant, the old room.